There is only one really serious philosophical problem, and that is suicide. Deciding whether or not life is worth living is to answer the fundamental question in philosophy. All other questions follow from that. As I, Albert Camus, a French philosopher, see the action of taking one's life is in relation to absurdity, or the problem of humanity seeking special meaning within their own individual lives.
What is the value of a mortar coil? It's truly sad if a candle is cut short, but those whose existence is truly intolerable can be seen as living through hell, and I cannot turn a blind eye to this. To prevent hell from coming on earth, in a sense, suicide must be utilized. In all of the cases, we must seek justice for those criminals.
Suicide is high in societies that are socially isolated, mobile, and disorganized. It is lower in countries or cultures whose philosophical or religious or cultural customs prohibit or forbid suicide. There are 4 different forms of suicide.
So what are your thoughts on suicide?
My thoughts on suicide, I find it just very sad and depressing that people feel like they have to go to such lengths when they can't find like the happiness that they can't see in life. But you really have to understand by case basis, really. That's what I feel like it is.
So do you think that culture and religion plays an effect on suicide?
Depending on who you are and how, like, for example, how you live your lifestyle, how you decide to live your life, if the culture that you're a part of or the religion that you believe in doesn't side with you, sometimes you feel like you're just against it if you don't find anyone to see what it's like to be you or understand how you see things.
Okay. And do you think it's right and or should be legal?
Personally, I would say no. Assisted suicide is something that I've really looked into a lot due to like why people argue for it and things like that. So it's thrown up in the air. Like I would say assisted suicide due to conditions I would understand and I would kind of argue for it, but I wouldn't really say I lean too heavy for saying we should just legalize suicide.
It's very well thought out. Thank you, man.
The 4 kinds of suicide is egotistic suicide, which is family integration; altruistic suicide, social forces for the sake of religious or political causes; anomic suicide, moral regulations; and fatalistic suicides, rules and controls that result in an unrewarding life. Do you believe that everyone has the right to commit suicide?
Yes, I do believe in that kind of right. Even if the act is selfish and it hurts others emotionally, ultimately what got the person to make that final decision, they might be going through a lot more pain than one might think of it. I'm not really supportive, but in the end, it is kind of their choice.
Okay. How do you believe culture or religion plays into people's lives to the point that they want to commit suicide or kill themselves?
Some people take religion in such a manner, to extreme manners, that any little things they do, or things they do, just guilt them over, and they just feel bad, and they just fall into like this terrible state. And sometimes that can be the case, or sometimes in extreme manners where in religion there's like, oh, I want to see God as fast as I can, even though religion does condone, doesn't support suicide. Some of them don't know that, and now they want to see God quicker, so they start doing these extreme things, like you can see the suicide bombings and things like that. So it's pretty bad. Yeah, I would say religion is can be a pushing factor for it.
Okay, honest opinion. Do you believe suicide is right or wrong?
Even through all that, I think suicide is wrong. I think now we have a lot of medications and technology to help those that are in need of help. And it's just kind of, everyone has a chance to go and get help. It's only the matter of getting that help that they need. But not everyone, because some people are in like bad positions of like, they don't have the money for it, but even then they should try to look for some sort of help. I don't really support suicide because how it hurts others, I couldn't imagine one of my friends or family member just committing suicide. I would feel terrible for the rest of my life, so not an action I would support.
Go. All right, man. So what are your thoughts on suicide?
Suicide, it's selfish. You're taking away someone's son, daughter, husband, wife, whatever you are. You're taking away someone important to someone else. You may not think it, but that's because in your own mind, you are seeking release from choices and the pressure of life.
Okay, does religion play a factor into that?
Well, yes. Because let's say you believe in, say, Christianity, for an example. Say you believe in God and there's heaven. You think because you're a believer you'd be able to go there. So you're like, well, there's a perfect life waiting afterwards for me if you believe. And I don't have to make these choices. I don't have to live with this.
Okay, should religion play... should
suicide be right?
Should suicide be a right?
No. It should not.
Why?
Because what right do you have to take away someone else's love, compassion, caringness? What right do you have to make someone else sad? What right does any human have to do that to another human?
All right, thank you for your time, man.
I believe suicide is a serious topic. Its action does not only affect the person in the act, but also the people that care for them. People can have the mindset of wanting to end their lives for either serious reasons, such as religion and culture, or very unintelligible ones. While the option of committing this action isn't something I wholly agree with, people should try to remember if their ties with other people, such as family members and friends, would have any negative consequences to their decision of killing themselves. In essence, suicide is wrong as it acts as a selfish excuse to escape utter hardship.
Suicide is something that's very sad, but in the end of the day, I find death to be a necessary thing, and it will come around. A really scary aspect to me is living consistently in pain. If someone's really in pain, I want them to be able to end in peace with the ones they loved. I've often been worried about the end of my life being scary and alone without people. So to me, suicide is something that should be left up to that person. And there should be, of course, regulations that no one wants anybody to really get hurt or do anything rash, but with proper precautions and background checks and talk with the families, I think it's a reasonable thing to make it legal. And that's about it.
Suicide is something that I find pretty topical. For the most part, I don't think it's right. Many people think that just because they have a hard day or two, or a week or a month, they think that ending their life would be the correct decision to make. But in reality, it really isn't. It leaves a long-lasting effect around the people, or around their family members and friends. So, in general, I don't really think it's a good idea. I understand, I've personally experienced it myself, and many friends have as well, that, hard times usually take a toll on you, but staying on this planet Earth is probably the best decision that you can make. Eventually, over time, you'll get over those bad things that happen in your life, bad events, anything like that. But committing suicide is a really selfish thing that leads to hurt for everyone around you.
Okay, so my personal opinion on the philosophy of suicide is really that suicide should never be seen as okay or should ever be allowed. And as a person who has personally suffered from depression, two of my best friends have a lot of chronic depression. They've also attempted suicide and thankfully failed. But seeing that, it obviously gives me a standpoint of just like never wanting to allow that to ever happen. And I know people think it's a personal choice, and there's personal factors, there's unhappiness and just chronic pain. But as a Christian, I think we live to just grow closer to God, and I know that there's going to be times of life where we're up and down, and sometimes those phases are going to last a lot longer than other phases. But suicide, ending your own life, should never be seen as an option. It should never be seen as okay, because life is a lot better than people think, and that people will give it credit for, to be honest. But
life should be seen as a gift from God and worth living. Man has a purpose to accomplish in life. Suicide is unethical. Some of the most common causes of suicide are depression, sudden heavy monetary loss, terminal illness, emotional pain, etc. Man has to accept this as a challenge and overcome these temporary situations. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem which can be overcome. Just because the person who commits suicide is not there, think of the long-term impact that the death could cause to others around. It can place others in the same state of depression that leads a person to commit suicide, and simply the cycle continues. Man must not take his life, as it is disgraceful to the person as well as other family members. The sanctity of life should be of utmost consideration in all respect, and suicide should be discouraged. The conclusion is, life should be seen as a gift from God and worth living. Man has a purpose to accomplish in life, and it becomes inexcusable if he chooses to terminate his life himself. The sanctity of human life should be of utmost consideration in all respect. Hence, suicide should be discouraged.
If you or any of your loved ones are experiencing issues in life and have a difficulty existing, please call this number 1-800-273-8255.